8 people were murdered, bludgeoned to death by an axe in Villisca, Iowa. The most grotesque axe murders in history. This was not only a house where, well, 8 people died, 6 kids, 2 adults, but also there's a long list of hauntings to go with it. Someone recently stabbed themselves. There's been all kinds of paranormal activity. We're going to talk about that. My name is Rob. We got Jake here. And today on Crossing the Medium, we're going to talk all things Villisca Axe Murder House. Let's go. Pum, pum, pum. I'll set the scene for you. It was Villisca, Iowa, June 10th in 1912. Sarah and Josiah had went to a church event that was specifically for children. They came home with 4 kids and 2 of their friends wanted to spend the night. Now, these kids were all 12 and under, with the youngest one being 5 years old. Now, they had gotten home. Nobody really knows what happened after that, but what ended up happening was the next morning. The neighbor, also the parents of the 2 kids that were spending the night, noticed that Josiah and, well, the family hadn't came out and weren't tending to the animals. The kids had to go to school in the morning, and so there was no signs of anyone moving around. We went and knocked on the door. There was no answer. Now, what ended up happening afterwards was, well, pretty shocking. The neighbor called Josiah's brother, was like, hey man, I can't get these guys in. I can't get a hold of them. So the brother comes over. They both open the door, and then they find, which is the most grotesque scene you could possibly think of, 8 people brutally murdered. And they walk in downstairs first, and that's where they found the children. The 2 kids first, the 2 girls is the first they found. And they're, well, bludgeoned to death by an axe was the remains of all the family members. There was a lot of oddities to go along with this as well. Not only were the kids all murdered, parents murdered, but there was unexplained things laying around the house. First of all the windows were shut, right? The blinds were shut. The doors were locked. Whoever it was locked the door on the way out. Also, the man murdered everyone and then snacked on beans and bread. He also left slabs of pork or bacon randomly throughout the house, particularly around little kids' rooms and in odd places. There was also the axe that he murdered everyone with laying up against the wall. And to set the scene, what investigators think had happened was that on his first victim, he had swung the axe, and, well, the axe itself got stuck, more than likely in someone's skull or in bone. It's difficult to remove the axe. So after killing the first person, what we think happened was that the axe murderer decided to turn the axe around, and this would be a little bit easier to repeatedly swing. He swung and potentially killed or injured one person, would get out of the room and go to another. There's 8 people in this home. Did this one after another, repeatedly coming back. The bloodstains were on the roof. And how did it get there? Well, the blood would cover the back side of the axe, or the side of the axe with the blade. He would pull the axe up, and the blood splatter would fling and stick to the roof. There were brain fragments all over the place, skull fragments all over the place. And then he would cover up the faces with pillowcases or blankets. Absolutely the most grotesque research I've ever done. Hands down. There is multiple accounts because for some weird reason, this was in 1912, they didn't rope the area off. So hundreds of people, spectators and people from the town, came down and wanted to take a look.
tampering with evidence and getting everything mixed up and moving things around. And this is the 1912s where forensic evidence is already not very good.
Yeah.
And they're coming in and hundreds of people are passing through the home. There's no telling who could have done this crime.
Yeah. And then you also had all of the eyewitness accounts.
Right.
And so there were hundreds of them. Hundreds of eyewitness accounts where they just grotesquely said everything they saw. And it's just bizarre. There was also hauntings as well, which will blow your mind. Someone stabbed themselves. There's just a long list of hauntings. We'll get into the hauntings in a minute. Also, it's an unsolved case. We don't know who did it. We assume we know who did it. There's a likely candidate. This is one that admitted to doing it, confessed. But then there are other candidates as well. And well, they all hold merit. I can't simply point my finger and say that guy definitely did it.
Whoever did this crime is absolutely sick in the mind to go ahead and kill kids under 12 years old, bludgeon them with an axe repeatedly, and to go and return to their rooms and make sure that they were dead. And then not only that, but to cover up their faces and also to veil like the mirrors and to drape the windows and all of that. It's kind of like he didn't want to see what he was doing, or he didn't want anyone else to see. I mean, what do you think about that? Why would he cover the mirrors in the house for?
You know, you gotta think that in this way you need to put into perspective like what is going on in a serial killer or an absolute insane person's head, and rational thinking just goes out the window, right?
Right.
You know, you don't go in and kill 8 people, 6 kids, none of them are even teenagers. Like, so obviously you have some very distraught mental activity here, and I think that you would expect disturbing behavior.
You think that he was
eating beans and bread while everyone is just dead around you? You're covered in blood.
How could you even have an appetite at that certain time? Like
he washed his hands though. That is part of the evidence. There was a sink downstairs, utility sink. He washed his hands.
Huh.
And so it's
he didn't want to get any blood on his beans and bread.
No, apparently not, dude.
Back in 2014, a pretty popular YouTuber by the name of Robert Slauson Jr., he was doing a paranormal investigation with some friends, and they decided to go and stay the night over at the Villisca House. And when they went in there, everything was fine. They set up cameras and EVPs and all sorts of stuff. They were getting a lot of good evidence and trackings of paranormal activity. And then all of a sudden, Robert decided to sneak off into the little girl's room, or the guest room in the house, where Lena and Ina Stillinger were staying. And in that room, he decided to, or it's not really like he decided to, but he was found with a stab mark in his chest. So he had self-inflicted a stab to his chest. And when confronted about it and asked why he did that, he said that the voices made him do it and he blacked out. He didn't remember doing that.
Yeah. That's pretty nuts, man. I mean, you would think that, hey, perhaps this is a call for attention from a YouTuber.
Maybe a publicity stunt,
yeah, but
right?
To stab yourself, I don't see that one, dude. I mean, we're all in paranormal, like, you know, you're watching because you're a believer, right? Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have gotten this far. And even if you're not a believer, the YouTubers or content creators just aren't going to go to that level, man.
Right.
They're not. You know, there's enough evidence. You know, 40% of the world has seen paranormal activity, and
I mean, to take a knife and stab yourself in the chest.
not
like,
happening,
that's next
level.
level.
I believe this was a true possession. You know, I know a lot of people talk about possessions as, you know, what you would see in movies where, hey, you know, there's a demon stuck inside of them. You got to exorcise the demon out, and, you know, you need a priest. But no, I think that, you know, when you get into hauntings, sometimes it's just a matter of seconds or moments that, you know, you are undertaken by someone else. And so that's what I think happened here.
So do you think it's the same spirit from 1912?
I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming so. It has to be, dude.
Yeah, because it has a strange coincidence that there's stabbing involved.
I mean, you also had 8 people die in that room.
There's already so much
fashion.
Negative energy in that house regardless.
Other hauntings, you had the ghost moms. So ghost moms, a little paranormal group, they went and stayed at the house as well. Okay. And for them, they had a motion detector with audio to it. And they had left the motion detector in a certain area. It went off in an empty room.
Okay.
So they went and checked on it. There was nobody there. And then when they went back and watched the footage, you could hear a little girl's voice say, "Mommy." This was also in one of the rooms that one of the girls had died in as well.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah. Also, they had some equipment there as well. It had a word database. And so what they did was they asked, you know, they formed a group and they asked, like, hey, how was the family killed and who did it? Mm-hmm. And the word database came up with struck on how was the family killed.
Okay.
And then also they were asking, like, was it Reverend or Kelly, which are, you know, some of the suspects for this as well. And then struck came back again. And so interesting there. There was also footsteps outside of a closet. So another one of the investigators. So, you know, they do ghost tours there. Actually,
very popular spot.
Yeah, let me pull up the house here. So here's the house, Villisca Axe Murder House. So
they restored it back to the 1912 original state as well.
So here you can stay at the house for a certain rate. You can just tour the house as well for a quick tour.
Yeah.
And so you've had a lot of paranormal hunters come out here. This is the attic area. And then you also have, this is what the inside of the house looks like. As you mentioned, it was restored and has that same look as before. So,
you know, I looked up how much it costs to stay one night at the Villisca house. Guess how much it would be? It's $440 to stay one night at the Villisca house murder.
That's cheaper than the hotels here in Vegas, dude.
People are paying top dollar to see some paranormal activity, though.
Yeah, no. So another group, so investigator named Johnny, him and his friends locked themselves in a closet on the second floor. And so they brought EVP meters. They were trying to get some voices. They were trying to record something. And so they're locked up in a closet.
Okay.
They hear footsteps coming up the stairs. So mind you, they got recording equipment. They're locked in a closet. Right. They hear footsteps coming up the stairs. Then they hear someone walking up to the door. And so they're kind of freaked out. Well, first of all, they're in a closet.
Yeah,
so
I'm out of there.
Yeah. So they're like, all right, well, like who's, you know what I mean? You're inside of a closet and someone's walking into the closet or walking up to the door.
That's a confined space.
So immediately you're kind of getting worried. So they bust the door open, they kick it open, and there was nobody out there. There was nobody in the room. There was nobody anywhere. And so, yeah. Also, there has been repeated, and there is photos, and it is a well-known occurrence for fog to roll into the house through the rooms.
Literal fog.
Literally fog There's also fog in that area, supposedly.
Does fog get into?
No, fog does not roll into a house.
So, so how, I don't get it. How is fog getting into the house?
Hey, well, you do get it. It's not your normal fog, right?
It's
You've seen the fog in the Scooby-Doo cartoons, bro.
That fog. It's
that fog,
the
man.
following fog.
Yeah, the following fog.
Fog just follows you everywhere you go, no matter what.
Dude.
That
also, the fog comes with like weird, stale smells, rotten smells. So it's not just, a visual situation. You also got physical effects with people that come by and visit it. There's the nausea, the headaches. There's just people that walk outside and throw up.
And it blows my mind that people still pay for this kind of experience, Let's do it. I'm down. You want to do it?
I'm down. Iowa.
That's a...
Let's go to Iowa.
Okay.
All right. We'll do a follow-up episode on this as well. Now, there's also a lot of the photos. So there's hundreds of photos. That when people took the photos, you could see these visible orbs and lights in the photos, which we know that in a lot of paranormal or hauntings, those tend to pop up a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So
light's just energy, right? So
yeah,
whatever is
100%.
there. Oh my God, that's creepy. There was a family that moved in to the Villisca Axe House, if that's what you want to call it. They moved in the 1960s. They rented it. It was a family, the Clarks. The father, his name was Robert Clark. He was the one that mainly experienced the phenomena. He would hear children laughter and experience nausea and feel a presence unknown. And sometimes he would say that he would black out and he would wake up at the foot of the children's bed. And he's also woken up with an axe in his hand before. And it got so bad to the point where he fell asleep and woke up and he was out front and he had murdered a dog, stabbed it. And after that day, he and his family decided that they weren't going to stay there anymore and packed their bags and got out of there.
Dude, that's another one, man. We talked about like that's a second haunted house where
what do they have against dogs?
Yeah, no, last episode or a couple episodes back, we talked about where someone had stabbed a cat with a knife.
Yeah.
Outside, a stray cat, and then left it on the front porch. And so this is
so it's
killed a dog with the axe is the crazy part though.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, well, I mean, the axe from the murders, is still at that house. You can see it. They have it on display.
So there were some suspects now. No one was ever found guilty. There were a couple trials. There is someone that confessed to the murders, later retracted it. There is, I think, 3 potential suspects. There are more, but there's 3 like main suspects. One of them was one that hired. Anyways, let's get into this. So who's the main suspect? Who's the main dude?
Well,
the one that everyone thinks it's them.
The guy that personally I think it was them too. I mean, there's way too much coincidence. Like it's just way too many coincidences for it not to be him. But this is Reverend George Kelly. He's a traveling minister from England and was on the road selling sermons and preaching the good word of the Lord. And he was actually spotted at the same family service children event that the church was having that night that the Moore family was also attending. And he was a man that was claimed to have mental health issues, and he was psychotic in ways. But there's multiple accounts of people saying that he came up to them saying there's going to be something bad that happens in Villisca tonight. And he left on the train early that morning and was telling people about the murders, asking if they've heard of it before it was even public information.
Yeah, this was before there was television.
And he's literally leaving the crime scene, going on the train and telling people before the paper even knows about it. And he was saying that he was describing the crime in perfect detail to how evidence resides. And he even went on to confess to it, saying that God made him do it. God made him cleanse the sin of the 8 people in that house. That God, he felt that he had a hand holding his hand while he was striking the children. That God had sent him there in order to relinquish the sin that was in that house. And he said that once he started, there was no stopping. He started with the children and the whispers. He said that it started and there was no stopping afterwards.
The preacher, he was a nervous wreck. He mumbled his words and he was erratic. Is also obsessed with sex and religion. He was a traveling preacher, happened to be there, as you mentioned.
Right.
And then, the crazy part was that, he got on a train on the next morning and he was leaving and he had told a lady on the train, as you mentioned,
right,
that there were 8 dead souls in Villisca. That's what he had said. And this was before, as mentioned, there was no television.
Right.
They had the radio then. But, this wasn't...
Even then, it takes a couple hours for that kind of information to even go public.
Also, the reason that the investigators got him into trial was a little lesser known fact here, was that he was sending letters to the detectives.
Was he?
He wrote letters and he inserted himself into the scene. He was like, hey, I was here at this part. I did this. He gave interesting accounts that only the investigators or people that had visited the house would have known. And so there was the bizarre details in the letters.
He knew that the mirrors were veiled and that he put blankets over the
He
faces.
also had mental illness. And so, covering the mirrors, perhaps that was something to do with his mental illness. And people in the 1912s weren't really diagnosed with mental illnesses like it is now. So if you think about it, if you were diagnosed with a mental illness in 1912, you were probably crazy as crap. Because
crazy.
you didn't hear a lot of that growing up. And you didn't hear much about it back in the 1910s and 12s.
Right.
It's more or less a more recent diagnosis to have all these mental illnesses.
Yeah.
And it was kind of rare back then. So I'm just saying that if you were mentally ill back then, you were probably really on the scale, bro. You were out there.
You were probably past the scale, let's be honest.
So,
but he gave his confession and then they knew that he had these mental illness problems. And with that, they took it and retracted his signed confession, claiming that it was coerced.
Yeah, police forced him.
That police forced him into agreeing to this story. But he also has all these evidence where people are saying that they recognize him and they think he's the killer. And it's really just a pick of the straws at this point.
Yeah. Also, they did try him twice. He went and faced a jury.
Yeah.
The first time, hung jury. They couldn't do any. They couldn't come to an agreement whether innocent or guilty. And then they tried him again, and then this time he was acquitted. They just let him go. Yeah. Also,
Claimed him as delusional.
yeah. Now, there was some interesting theories rolling around, right? So you had Franklin Jones, or Frank Jones.
Yeah.
And
Good friend of the Moore family.
Yeah.
Keep in mind.
Yeah. So Frank was the owner of a John Deere dealership.
Right.
And so Josiah worked for him.
For a long time.
Right. He left.
Mm-hmm.
He left the company and he went and started his own business. And he took, or he basically
secured
left
a contract with John Deere.
Yeah. He had left. And when he left, he took the number one client from Frank,
right,
from his previous business owner. And so Frank was pissed off, was set for revenge. Another thing about this guy Frank, so that he was never really accused or whatever it was. There's just a lot of whispers in town that he had something to do with it. He was blood set on revenge. He was out in town talking about like getting back at him.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, this happens.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting part is that, well, nobody thinks that he did it, but they do think that he might have hired somebody.
Right.
Also, he was extremely wealthy, powerful, influential, political.
Yeah.
Frank. So they think that they didn't go and pursue him because wasn't anybody to mess with from the city. And
that could be a good point. I mean,
so I think that's perhaps why he was never a main suspect. And I think it was because, hey, Frank, he owns the dealership in town. Yeah. Everyone knows him. He's like buddy with everybody. And so they think what happened, or the main theory, and I think there's a lot of legs to this. Mm-hmm. And I think he hired someone to kill the fam.
He wasn't doing it himself.
Maybe he didn't. Maybe he wanted a hit. Maybe he put out a hit on Josiah, and he probably hired the wrong crazy guy, and the guy just killed everybody. Oh. And maybe Frank was like, Jesus, bro, like, you weren't supposed to kill everybody, like just Josiah. I don't know. But the thing is, you put a hit out.
Right. Now,
this is kind of speculative, but here's where it gets crazy, is that the man for hire, which is the main suspect, his name's Blackie, William Mansfield.
William Mansfield.
So he's an ex-convict, a railroad worker.
Right.
There was a connection between the two. They had known to have crossed paths. Now, they weren't friends by any means, but they had been known to cross paths. And this guy, William Mansfield, he murdered his own family 2 years after the Villisca Axe murders.
Yeah.
And he had bludgeoned them to death as well.
Yeah. And it was a wife and their infant child who was under 2 years old, bludgeoned to death with an axe. Almost exactly the same style as the Villisca Axe murders themselves.
William didn't have an alibi for that night. Mm-hmm. And he also worked on the railroad. And so he could have just came into town, grabbed an axe, did his thing, got out of town in the same way. And the fact that Frank, had been going around town talking about seeking revenge, and then this happened. And so that's the other main suspect.
Yeah, and
I think this guy makes actually more sense.
Why do you think that?
Well, he killed his own family with an axe 2 years later. And this was a guy that was hanging around that town then anyways. And so you have an axe murderer, a convicted axe murderer.
Yeah.
That was in the same town as the axe murderer. That had a tie with the boss that Josiah used to work with.
Yeah.
And Josiah and Frank and Josiah hated each other. Frank said, like, hey, I'm seeking out revenge. He had the money to hire somebody. he had known cross paths with this dude.
Yeah. Funny thing about another little hidden lore kind of thing about Frank Jones is something that might have added to the fire even. They say that Josiah Moore was having an affair with Frank Jones' daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
So that also, along with taking his number one client and everything else, could have also added fuel to the fire.
Yeah, they didn't like each other. And the thing was as soon as the murders happened, they didn't look at the priest. The priest, the reason he became the prime suspect was because he was on the train talking about it.
Before it happened.
Yeah, which at the same time, everybody in town ran to the house.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like it was a hush.
Telling people before anyone even knew about it. So he was literally
maybe he was the first person. Maybe he was the first person to hear about it, happened to get on the train. Now, it's less likely. I get that. But maybe he caught wind of it and got on the train right away and then was talking about it. And he's not really stable. And so for me, I look at it as like, hey man, maybe the axe murderer was guilty of being an axe murderer in this situation. And yeah, I think that is.
Well, I mean, William Mansfield is a convicted axe murderer. And, he's actually the inspiration behind the book and the movie, The Man on the Train. But there's so much that lines up. He was there at the Reverend George Kelly. He was there at the children's service event. He talked about it to people before it happened, saying that there was going to be something bad that happened in Villisca. He mentioned in his confession that God made him do it, that he had a hand that was forcing him to strike, and that he was describing the event to random people on the train right after it happened when it's not publicly.
So, there's actually, it's all solid points. I just wanted to interrupt you here.
Yeah.
Back in 1912, you couldn't just go out to the gun shop and buy guns like you can out here. And so when people go out and kill people nowadays in sprees, it's more likely to have guns. But in the early 1900s, it was axes, right? That was your thing. Axes. If you had a gun, it was probably a rifle. There was no semi-automatic, long clips. Anyways, so just like in Europe now, you have the stabbings. So back in the day, it was axes. So what you brought up was the traveling, the man on the train. That was another axe murderer. That wasn't even the guy, Blackie, William Blacksfield.
Really?
So yeah. So Paul Mueller is the guy that you're referencing, and so he also vanished. So he killed a whole family with an axe as well. And then he disappeared. Nobody ever found him. So he's another potential suspect. He also traveled by train.
This is a big old puzzle.
The thing about the Paul Mueller guy. So Blackie, he killed everyone by bludgeoning with the axe. The wife, the kids. Now, the Mueller guy, what he did was he covered up the mirrors in his family's murder, in the family murder. It wasn't his own family.
Everyone has similar MOs, but there's also differences in everyone else's. And see, it's just I understand why it's a cold case. It's one of the most gruesome cases, which should have never went unsolved. But
yeah, there was no forensic evidence back then. So.
I get why it was unsolved.
Yeah. So I guess in the 1900s, you got to be careful with axes, dude. Well, that's gonna do it for today's episode. Let us know what you think. Give us some comments, and if you think it's one of these three individuals, you have the wandering preacher who confessed and also had interesting details on the case, that he was writing letters to the detectives. If you think it was the wandering preacher, let us know. Or if you think it is Blackie William. Now, if you think it was him, the Axeman for Hire, who also killed his own family with an axe, or if you think it's the man on the train, the movie was made after this guy. He also covered mirrors and killed people with axes. Paul Mueller, let us know what you think. And if you're not subscribed or haven't liked the video, please do us a favor. We're a new channel trying to grow. And so, till next time, keep the lights on. Peace.